0 for 2. Donald Trump has failed in his second attempt in 24 hours to get a court to stay or block Friday's sentencing in his criminal court case, where he was convicted on 34 counts of felonies. He's tried with Judge Merchan in the last 24 hours with a notice to stay, arguing that he didn't have any jurisdiction, and now he's failed before the Appellate Division First Department. I'll call it the Manhattan Appeals Court, sitting on Madison Avenue, where I practice. He's failed again because Justice Gessmer, has ordered has issued an order denying his request for an emergency stay. I'm Michael Popok. You're on Legal AF. We have so many fast-moving stories today at the intersection of law and politics that I'm almost breathless delivering them. Let's drill down on this for a moment. We know from last Friday that Justice Merchan, who sits at the Supreme Court, which sounds like an appellate court, but in New York it isn't. It's the trial court level. He presided over the criminal conviction. He made a ruling after denying Donald Trump's not one, but second motion to dismiss the indictment, to throw away the jury's hard work and 34-count felony conviction, just throw it in the trash because he had the fortune of winning the presidency again. And that was denied by Justice Merchan. In addition, he addressed sentencing. He said, now that there's no more motions for me to consider, we're now down to sentencing. And I'm going to sentence Donald Trump before the inauguration while he's still just President-elect Donald Trump. And that's it. It's going to be on the 10th, on Friday. I'll see you there. And he also tipped his hand and said, and I'm not going to send the guy to jail. I'm going to do a unconditional discharge, meaning the felonies stay on the books, but no jail time or any other type of community service or anything like that. And that's what he said he was going to do. And we were all like, that's not what he should do. Send the guy to jail and all of that. What Donald Trump heard was, I don't want to be sentenced at all because I don't want to hear what Justice Merchan has to say about all my criminal bad behavior and conduct. Am I lashing out at the judge? I mean, let's be frank, on more than one occasion, let's say 100 occasions, Donald Trump has gone after the jugular of the judge, called him a criminal, called him an animal, called him conflicted, called him a liar. Did the same thing for Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan DA's office. So, he doesn't want to go and appear in front of Justice Merchan on Friday for anything, even if at the end of the day, the judge doesn't issue his sentence, because he doesn't know what this judge is going to say, especially now. So that's the main reason. So first stop that Donald Trump tried to get Friday blocked was to go back to the trial court judge and argue he has no jurisdiction because Donald Trump is now the president-elect, and there's president-elect immunity. There isn't. And it would be a violation of the separation of powers. It isn't. And it would violate the United States Supreme Court's decision in the immunity ruling from the summer, finding that I have immunity. It doesn't. Everything in the Stormy Daniels hush money cover-up case, 34 felony counts, has to do with Donald Trump before he was president. The conduct is before he was president. The indictment was before he was president. The trial before he was president. The conviction before he was president. And Friday is before he's president. And so Donald Trump didn't like that answer. When the judge denied his request, he said, there's no such thing as president-elect immunity. Nothing is going to impair your role as president. I'm not going to impose a sentence of any jail time. I'll see you on Friday. Denied. Well, Donald Trump didn't like that. So he filed two pieces of paper today, almost at the same time. He filed an Article 78 lawsuit where he's suing Justice Merchan and Alvin Bragg under a unique aspect of New York law that allows you to sue an officer if you believe he doesn't have jurisdiction or he's acted outside the scope of his duties. So that's how they're suing them. It's really another variation on an appeal. They also filed an appeal, and with the appeal, they filed an emergency application to have an emergency justice, in this case, Ellen Gessmer, who happened to be working that day, on duty for all emergency applications. She's one of the many justices of the Appellate Division, the Manhattan Appellate Court. Normally, it's a 5 or 6 justice panel, but in this case, it was the emergency judge. And they filed their papers. The Manhattan DA opposed. They had an argument about immunity on the Trump side. It was like, we have immunity. And on the the Manhattan DA's office side, there is no immunity. There's no immunity. There's no divestiture of jurisdiction. This is all about pre-presidential conduct. Even the other side admits there's no immunity here. At best, it's about some evidential or evidentiary rulings made by Justice Merchan, and this case should go to sentencing and final conclusion to allow for a full-blown appeal by Donald Trump if he wants it. Can't just leave it hanging out there without a sentence. That completes the criminal process, and we're going to do that before the inauguration. So they all ran down. They all got called down to a hearing in front of Justice Gessmer. It was about an hour-long hearing. It was Todd Blanche on behalf of Donald Trump's side, who's soon to be in the Department of Justice, and so Trump's going to have to find a new lawyer after a time for his private affairs. And then on the other side, Stephen Wu, a lawyer within the Manhattan DA's office. I think he's an appellate lawyer, and they argued in front of Justice Gessmer for about an hour. Just what I just told you. Immunity, no immunity, immunity, no immunity. And she asked a couple of questions, including about whether this would interfere with the president-elect duties. And Stephen Wu answered no, that, he's busy tweeting and social media posting and trying to buy Greenland and the Panama Canal or take it by force and rename the Gulf of Mexico. This is my paraphrase. He's got plenty of time to also virtually appear on Friday to hear his sentence, which is not going to be jail time. And the justice nodded. And then she denied the emergency stay. Instead, she set a briefing schedule where it demonstrates she understands how a calendar and a clock works, because the hearing is going to be on the 21st of January, full-blown hearing in front of the full panel, because she's just there to decide whether there should be an emergency stay now pending a hearing before the full panel. And she set the hearing before the full panel, which she's allowed to do, to time out for the 21st of January, which sounds an awful lot like, there, I got it out finally, the day after the inauguration. So she set a briefing schedule. She wants to see the opposition papers by the Manhattan DA's office on the 14th. She wants to see a short reply by Donald Trump on the morning of the 21st. And sometime in the afternoon of the 21st or so, they're going to hold a hearing after he's been sentenced on the 10th. And he can then do a full-blown appeal by that time. So that was the ruling by Justice Gessmer. We'll continue to follow it. It's not the last stop for Donald Trump. I think he tries two more things. Forget, he's not going to go back to the trial court judge, Judge Merchan. He's not going to go back to this particular emergency judge. He's going to try to lob, potentially, an emergency application into the court that's just above the Manhattan Appeals Court, which is the Court of Appeals, which I believe sits in Albany. And that's the highest level court in the New York system. That's what they call it. They call it the Court of Appeals. Try an emergency application there. It's very hard to get one. Very narrow grounds that you have to satisfy. I don't think he has it. So you try that. Failing that, he then lobs out and tries to jump the tracks and go over to the United States Supreme Court. But there he's got to do an emergency application, and it's got to come up, I think, through Justice Sotomayor, who sits over all things New York. And I don't think she's granting that. With this posture, this procedural posture. So I don't think there's anything that the Supreme Court cares to weigh in on about pre-presidential criminal conduct and how it relates to their during presidency criminal conduct immunity decision. So I think she just denies it, and that shuts the door and that exit ramp for Donald Trump. He's left in New York. That means he's going to get sentenced. My betting odds for sentencing on Friday is 75% or greater. It's a 75% chance of cloudy for Donald Trump and a hard rain falling as early as Friday with his sentencing. We'll cover it all here on Legal AF, on this particular YouTube channel that we're building with our bare hands and your help. We are people-powered. We have Legal AF or Midas Mighty powered. We have no outside investors. Catch me on Popok Live on Tuesdays today at 8 p.m. Eastern Time over on the Midas Touch Network. It's live. I take questions. I give answers. I'll be catching you up on all these Trump criminal matters that all happened just today. Popok Live, Midas Touch, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on their YouTube channel. So until my next reporting, I'm Michael Popok. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.